Good day to you, one and all. It is I, Justin Hawkins, and this is Justin Hawkins Rides Again. Out comes he's got his own t-shirt on. Well, I thought I'd showcase some of this brilliant merchandise, links in the description, whilst jogging in the forest today, preparing for a gruelling 6 months of touring that's coming up. But anyway, today I thought I would, well, as evidenced by my cardboard cutout of Sir David of Hasselhoff, I am known to have a fascination for inanimate renderings of cultural icons. Is that iconography? Don't know. But today I'm going to talk about statues, namely rock and roll statues, and perhaps we can look upon them and decide whether they are fitting tributes to the legends that they are supposed to depict. Justin Hawkins Rides Again, which sounds like a convoluted idea for an episode. Again. But it's not, honest. Today we are going to look at some of the worst statues of famous musicians that were ever created. I was sent some of these suggestions by my treasured patron children. The link to the Patreon is somewhere. And my producer also had a little dig around to find some of these brilliant ones that I haven't seen yet. What I want to do is rate each one, and then we can decide at the end who deserves the title of the worst rock and roll statue of all time, and which one actually deserves to be removed from the list. At the end, cast your vote in the comments section so that we can have a people's choice vote too. Now, this actually was an idea that was given to me by my dear friend Pat Carty, who we did a long form with a couple of weeks ago. So the first one we're going to look at is this one here of Amy Winehouse in Camden Town, London. And of course, I think Camden was, we all used to hang around with Amy Winehouse, funnily enough, back in the early noughties. That's actually, Camden was our stamping ground too. And it does resemble her. Kind of looks a bit unfinished though, like it probably needs a bit more sanding down in a couple of areas, but rough around the edges. Lovely red carnation of some sort in her hair. And I don't know, I'd say because of the hairstyle, that's instantly recognisable, and of course an artist that deserves a tribute of some sort. I'm going to give that a 7. Angus Young. This is Angus Young playing his trademark. Well, it looks like it's a Strat type guitar, but although no, actually looking at that guitar, it's double cutaway. So it could be like an SG body, but with the horns are a bit too long, and then it's got a pointy headstock. Now, I'd imagine that they probably wanted to use a real Gibson SG, which is obviously the wine red SG is the Angus weapon of choice, really. But perhaps the makers of the Gibson SG may have intervened at some point during the making of this. I think that the pose is pretty Angusy. And the guitar looks oversized, as it normally does on him. But you know what? That's not the right guitar. I think, unless you're like an AC/DC die-hard, you're probably going to look at that and think, who's this guy that's just been down to Argos and bought like a pointy headstocked, double-horned power Strat, I'd describe that as, because it's seems to have a humbucker and a single coil. The guitar, you've got to get the right guitar. Come on, guys. That's a 4. 4 out of 10. Okay, so Bon Scott in Scotland, which is, I think, where his family came from, holding some bagpipes and an SM58. Now, I think the SM58 is the thing that's really well observed. I think he's one of those live vocalists that really embodied the SM58 live vocalist, and he's the main reason why I use an SM58. I just think there's something about the balance and the poise that you have when you're singing into those things, and also you've got to get your mouth right on the capsule for it to be effective. As I scroll down, I see that it's a lovely bronze tone to this sculpture, suitable and adequate six-packery and bulgery just below the belt line there. It's all there. I mean, the bagpipes are a bit weird, but it's pretty cool. You know what? I feel like it must be really difficult to do people's faces in a bronze sculpture like that. But I think there's something in the pose and the fact that he's holding some bagpipes that gives it away. I'm going to give that a 6. So Chris Cornell in Washington. Okay, there's something well observed about the visage, but it seems like his head tapers at the top. I would imagine that if you are a sculptor, I think probably the first thing you look at is the form of the generic form of the human head, and I think perhaps it just looks like somebody's. I don't know. Is it two-dimensional somehow? I can't. It seems like it's a bit squished up, but the facial expression is so Chris Cornell. If he was startled by, a wren or some other kind of small bird that just sort of came into his periphery. But yeah, looks like he's playing a 3-3-5 there. It's all pretty good. And he's barring an F major, as he was known to do on many occasions. I'm going to give this a 8, actually. I quite like that. Elton John in Georgia has this lovely green hue, which I would imagine comes from the oxidization of the copper. I like it when you see houses with copper bits on the outside, but we're not talking about, that. It really looks like him, the sort of the cheeky side smile, the glasses, the bow tie, the fact that he's playing a piano, and probably a plaque somewhere that declares it to be of Elton John. That's actually pretty good, that. 9. No, just there I said it. Elvis in Israel. Wow, like a sort of brutalist. What is this? How do you describe this? This is like... Oh my God, it's kind of like a computer game version of Elvis. This one is in Israel somewhere, alongside some guitars and stuff that says The King. I mean, I like it because it's very obviously Elvis. And actually, when you look at his face, that isn't bad. And it's also fresh and shiny as well. 10. That's my favourite one so far. Hendrix in Seattle. Now, is this like the famous Hendrix pose where you're just about to set fire to his Strat? And let's have a look at the Strat first. Yep, the headstock's on the wrong way up. He's playing it left-handed. All seems to be present and correct. So the tone and the tone knobs and the pickup selector is on the top of the strings because he's turned his guitar upside down because he's left-handed. Again, it has that sort of unfinished look, but the way the flares sort of flatten out these are really good. And look at that curly lead. That really is a well-observed piece of sculpting. Is that actually a curly lead that they've plugged in there? And is it actually a Strat that they've just covered over with some stuff? It's pretty fucking good. This is the best one so far. It's unmistakably Hendrix. Brilliant. Okay, 11 out of 10. Now let's have a look at Michael Jackson with his long-time simian companion, Bubbles. I mean, I haven't seen a picture of Bubbles for a long time, so it's very difficult to sort of talk about how accurate that sculpture is of Bubbles. But the Michael Jackson thing, it seems to have captured something of his childlike innocence, and I really love the coloration. They've gone for a sort of cream and gold colour scheme with bright red lips and a bit of guy liner on both Michael Jackson and the chimpanzee. It's brilliant. Another great... It's so difficult to choose. Here's another Michael Jackson one, the one that's at Fulham Football Club, being hoisted by some people in high-vis jackets. And what's he doing with his hand? He's doing the fist. So he's got the one glove on and 2 belts and his little... I mean, he looks big. That looks bigger than real Michael Jackson. I always imagine him to be quite small, but it looks to me like he's nearly 3 meters tall in this. A Goliath. I'm going to give that a 9. Now, I've seen this one in real life. Bee Gees at the Isle of Man. Now, strutting purposefully along the promenade there. What I love about this is the draped jacket that Barry's got over his shoulder there. It's like, come on, man. There's nobody cooler than Barry Gibb. Morris looking virile and healthy, like he's still got a bit of hair on top of his head, taken in his prime. And Robin, unmistakably Robin. I mean, some people used to say that I look a bit like Robin Gibb, so he's always going to be my favourite of the Bee Gees. Sadly passed away of liver cancer a while ago, but I just think this is a glorious depiction. I'm going to give it 12 out of 10. And the Phil Lynott in Dublin is a classic. I've seen this one in real life as well. I love all the plectrums that are sort of wedged in between the strings of his bass, which probably is a real bass that's just been treated somehow so that it withstands onslaught of the Irish elements, and he's got the classic one thumb in his pocket. It's really awesome and unmistakably him. Another 12. This is a great one. Look at that hair. The detail in this thing is so impressive. But what gets weird is when you zoom in and you have a little look at his eyes. And I mean, it's a thankless task. The best you can do really is paint on the coloured bits of the eyes and the pupils and so on. Moustache is looking hot though. It's all good. This is lovely. And you can see like his, what's that called? It's not a bolo tie, but some sort of thing at his neck, which is swaying in the Dublin breeze. Brilliant. And now here's David Bowie. That's just fucking weird. Oh yeah, it's that dog one where he's half dog, half man. It's pretty good actually. Got the colour of the hair right. 7. Rory Gallagher. Now, this is probably a lesser known but hugely influential guitar player. He had an opportunity to join the Rolling Stones at some point in his career, and he opted to do his own thing instead, and he's kind of like one of those live blues guitar legends. I think he's the one rock guitarist that really influenced Brian May above all others. So he's a real legend, totally deserving of a statue. And I like this, like him walking towards the front of a stage whilst playing a slide solo. He's got the slide on his finger as well. And then when you actually look at the expression on his face, it's really, really accurate. That's a brilliant one. 12. I've never seen that one in real life, but I'm going to go and check it out, I think. Bob Marley in Jamaica. I mean, it looks like it's made out of cake somehow. Maybe it's because it's painted. I don't know. It's it's a bit cakey for my taste. I'll give that a 5. Here's another Hendrix on the Isle of Wight, where he was yarn bombed. Okay. Okay. So yarn bombing, I guess, is when somebody comes and knits a load of stuff and puts it on the sculpture. So he's got like pieces of wool for the strings. I think the proportions of his hands to the guitar are exactly as I remember them. Doesn't seem like he's wearing much in the way of clothes, but he's got that sort of Ken genderless groin approach and a slightly stern, kind of almost cruel expression on his face, which I'm not accustomed to seeing. But lovely set of leg warmers. 6. Stevie Ray Vaughan, Austin, Texas. I mean, that's exactly what he used to look like, but my God, is he tall. Is that 3 meters again? Why did you have to make him so tall? 6. Michael Jackson in Zurich. There it is. I think this is from the His Tory thing, where he transplanted his face for that of Christopher Reeve, the original cinematic Superman. This is not very good. 4. Who's this now? John Lennon in Norfolk. I mean, I would have said, if you hadn't told me it was John Lennon, I would have said it was somebody like, I don't know, like Jesus, if he was obliged to attend something in a sports casual way. He's got like a nice blazer on. But I don't know, I would have said Barry Gibb again, actually. But yeah, apparently this is John Lennon. Bears no resemblance, but it's a lovely statue in its own right. 4. Sir Paul McCartney, recognisable immediately, mostly because of the finger pointing upwards and also the Vox bass, you know, that sort of, what's it called, a teardrop bass? And probably the fact that it's in Liverpool. There's something in his face that they've captured, but it's almost like a hybrid between Sir Paul McCartney with his hair from the 80s and but in the brow and that bit up there, it's almost like Ringo Starr has made this statue and inadvertently put a bit of himself in it somehow. Freddie Mercury, Montreux in Switzerland. Now this is one of the greatest of all time. This is going to be 13 out of 10. Look at that. You can really see, I mean, he's an iconic poser in the first place, but you know, they've captured that, but also like the facial expression and his nose and all that stuff is unmistakably Freddie. This is one of the best rock statues I've ever seen. There, 14 out of 10. Buddy Holly. Now, it's important to acknowledge the importance of Buddy Holly as a guitar player, I think, because, you know, if you think about songs like Peggy Sue, which I think originally started as Cindy Lou or something like that. Anyway, Peggy Sue, where the guitar solo is basically just A, D, A, and E, the chords. So if you master those 3 chords, you can play a guitar solo in the style of Buddy Holly. So I think he's one of those people that made guitar music accessible. And of course he had brilliant songs as well, and iconic glasses. Apart from that though, it could be anybody. 7 out of 10. Beethoven in Germany. I don't know what he looked like in the first place, but I'm sure I've never seen a more grumpy and foreboding sort of statue. He's got that lovely sort of green patina because of the copper element of the sculpture itself, and there's a fucking pigeon on his hat, so that's nice. Anyway, well, that's all of them. This came about because Pat mentioned that they'd recently unveiled a statue of Mick and Keith from the Rolling Stones in Dartford or somewhere or Deptford, I'm not sure, where, one of those places where they came up. And I think Mick did all right out of it, but Keith didn't. It didn't look anything like Keith, or the other way around. I'm not sure, which got us thinking about this. Use the comment section here to cast your vote below as to what is the worst one out of these. And if you want to take part in my special group Zoom chat nights, you can do so by joining my Patreon. Just join in the personal chat tier, and then we'll have a chat together. It's one of my favourite things that I do with my patrons. It's a lot of fun. So in the meantime, get voting. Justin Hawkins rides again. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Watch one of these 2 videos and keep your eyes peeled for tributes and statues to our leading cultural icons. Lots of love to you, and adieu.